As a child, every evening at precisely 9 o'clock, my mother would take me to the park near our home to play hide and seek. It was a ritual she insisted upon, a strange tradition that I never fully understood. She always gave me the same instruction: ignore her completely during the game, no matter what she said or did to coax me out of hiding. She warned me that she would try every trick in the book to lure me from my hiding spot, her voice firm, yet tinged with something I couldn't quite place, perhaps urgency, perhaps fear. It was an odd thing to say. If she wanted to find me so badly, why tell me her plan in advance? But I was young, and the park was a magical place at night, so I went along with it. The park itself was a sprawling expanse of trees and open fields, bathed in the cool, quiet darkness of the evening. The air felt crisp and alive, carrying the scent of pine and damp earth. At night, the trees seemed to loom larger, their branches stretching like silent sentinels against the starry sky. I loved the stillness, the way the world felt hushed and secretive, as if the park belonged only to me and my mother during those hours. When we played, she would stand in the center of a clearing, close her eyes, and begin counting down from 100, her voice steady and deliberate. That was my cue to run, to find a place to conceal myself within the vast, shadowed landscape. I had my favorite spots. Behind a cluster of thick oaks, there was a small hollow where I could lie flat against the ground, hidden by roots and underbrush. The park was enormous, yet somehow my mother always managed to pass by my hiding place at least 3 times within the 20-minute game. Each time she drew near, her footsteps crunching softly on the grass, she would speak. Her words were always the same, a strange, pleading litany that sent chills down my spine. "Please come out," she would say, her voice soft but insistent. "Mommy's tired of this silly game. It's cold out here. Let's go home." The first time I heard her, I was naive. I thought she meant it. I crawled out from my hiding spot, expecting her to laugh and ruffle my hair. Instead, her face twisted with fury. She stormed over, her eyes blazing, and grabbed my shoulders with a grip that made me wince. "How many times have I told you?" She snapped, her voice low and sharp. "Ignore me during the game, no matter what I say, no matter how much I beg." I stood there stunned as she dragged me back to the car, her silence heavy and cold. She didn't speak to me for the rest of the night or the next day. I was confused, hurt even, but I learned my lesson. From then on, her pleas fell on deaf ears. I stayed hidden, no matter how desperate her voice sounded, no matter how much she called out to me. It was strange, though. If she found me, she would be furious, her face contorted with anger and something else, disappointment perhaps. The park was vast, and if she were the one hiding, I'd never have found her. Yet she always seemed to know exactly where I was, as if she could sense me like a hunter tracking prey. Her anger was palpable, but beneath it there was always that undercurrent of disappointment, a heavy sigh, or a tearful look in her eyes before she turned, trudged back to the car. It made me feel awful, like I'd failed her in some profound way I couldn't understand. One night she found me in just 2 minutes. I was crouched behind a shrub, barely settled, when her shadow fell over me. She didn't yell that time. Instead, she burst into tears, her sobs echoing in the quiet park. I stood there frozen, not knowing why she was crying or what I'd done wrong. Her tears made my chest ache, but I didn't dare ask. I just followed her back to the car, the weight of her sadness pressing down on me. Over time, I became obsessed with winning. It wasn't just a game anymore, it was a challenge, a test of my ability to outsmart her. I started getting creative. I'd burrow deep into thickets, my clothes snagging on thorns as I crawled through the underbrush. I began wearing darker clothing, forest greens, deep blacks, anything that would blend into the night. One evening, I even climbed a tree, perching high above the ground where I thought she'd never look. I learned to control my breathing to move without making a sound, to become part of the park itself. When I succeeded, when she couldn't find me, she would smile. It wasn't a joyful smile, but one of relief, her shoulders relaxing, as if a great burden had been lifted. That smile made me proud. It meant I'd done something right. We'd return home and I'd fall asleep easily, the thrill of victory lingering in my mind. The routine continued night after night until one day everything changed. My father came home. I barely knew him. He was a stranger who appeared only twice in my life before that day. When I walked in from school, I saw him talking to my mother in the living room. Her face was pale, her eyes wide with fear, her hands trembling slightly. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but the air felt thick with tension. When I stepped closer, their conversation stopped abruptly. My father turned to me, his smile sharp and predatory like a wolf baring its teeth. It made my skin crawl. He laughed a low mocking sound and said something that reminded me of the cruel taunts I'd heard from classmates. I took a step back, unsettled. While he was in the bathroom, my mother hurried over to me, her movements quick and nervous. She pressed something into my hand, a small, cold object I didn't have time to examine, and whispered urgently, "Tonight when we go to the park, you must not come out of hiding no matter what. Not even after 20 minutes. Do you understand?" Her voice was shaking, her eyes pleading. I nodded, my heart pounding. That evening, my father was strangely energetic, almost gleeful, as bedtime approached. I thought we might skip the park, but my mother, looking frail and exhausted, glanced at the clock and said, "Let's go to the park tonight." She didn't call it hide and seek. That struck me as odd. My father grinned and said, "Why not? It'll be good to get some fresh air." His tone was casual, but there was something unsettling in his words, a hint of eagerness that made my stomach twist. My mother gestured for me to put on my camouflage clothes, and I understood immediately. I dressed quickly, pulling on the dark, heavy layers I'd perfected for hiding. We drove to the park in silence, my mother's hands gripping the steering wheel tightly, my father humming softly to himself. At the park, we walked together for a while, my father rambling about his job, his voice loud and careless. Then out of nowhere, my mother pointed to a tree in the distance, the same tree where she'd found me during our last game. Her voice was steady but strained as she said, "That tree's getting old, isn't it? It's a shame they can't run from disease." I understood instantly. She was telling me to run, to hide, to disappear into the park. My father laughed, a cold, hollow sound. Death comes for everything he said, no need to fear it. Then, as if on cue, I spotted a squirrel darting across the grass. "Look, a squirrel," I said, seizing the excuse. "I'm going to check it out." I bolted my feet, pounding the earth as I vanished into the familiar maze of trees and shadows. I moved carefully, avoiding twigs and dry leaves, making sure my path left no trace. I needed to get as far from them as possible before they realized something was wrong. I found a dense thicket, its branches tangled and low, and dove inside, curling up to make myself as small as possible. I focused on my breathing, keeping it slow and quiet, my heart hammering in my chest. Minutes passed, and then I heard their footsteps, my mother and father moving through the park. "Come out!" My father's voice boomed sharp and commanding. "If you're hurt, say something and we'll help you." My mother's voice followed, softer but no less urgent. "Come out, sweetheart, can you hear me?" My pulse quickened. I knew I couldn't move, couldn't make a sound. They moved away, their voices fading, but then they circled back. "Please come out," my mother said, her tone desperate. "Your father isn't dangerous. Come out, please." My father's voice joined hers, smooth and coaxing. "Come on, we need to leave soon. Just come out." I stayed still, my body aching from the cramped position, insects crawling over my legs. I wanted to run, to scream, but I held fast. An hour passed, maybe more, My muscles screamed and the cold seeped into my bones. Then a sound, a sharp crack, like a branch snapping behind me. My heart leapt, but I didn't turn. I couldn't. Come out, my mother's voice called again, closer now, laced with desperation. Stop this silly game and come out. I stayed silent, my breath shallow. Her voice grew louder, nearer, until I could almost feel her presence. I know you're around here, she said, her tone shifting, becoming something darker, something not entirely human. I'll find you soon, and when I do, I'll start with your arms. I'll peel you like fruit with a dull knife. There'll be blood, so much blood. Her voice twisted, guttural and alien, as if something else was speaking through her. I'm not a pathetic creature like you. She continued, now only 20 meters away. I don't choke on bones, but I can't resist them. Maybe I'll take them home and boil them. They taste so good. My stomach churned, but I stayed frozen. She was close now, so close I could hear her breathing. I know where you are, she hissed, her voice a mere whisper, 2 meters away. They're so soft, so wet, perfect for swallowing. I braced myself, certain she'd find me. But then her footsteps moved past, fading into the distance. I didn't move, not even when the night grew silent, not even when the cold numbed my fingers. I stayed there until dawn, until the first rays of sunlight filtered through the trees and the laughter of other children echoed in the park. Only then did I crawl out, my body stiff, and saw and make my way home. My father was gone when I arrived. My mother was there waiting. She pulled me into her arms, her embrace warm and tight, and for the first time in a long time, I felt safe.